everybody. And as you guessed, it's middle of the week, a Wednesday, as long as everything exported from my Premiere Pro on time.
And as long as you're listening on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's right. If nobody's listening, then we're just hi, Will.
I guess we don't exist.
Yeah.
If a podcast recorded on a Wednesday, but it's not listened to on a Wednesday, did it really record?
It might be. Yeah, so today we're going to discuss tech in schools because we do have kind of a large time gap, even in listeners. I know there's some listeners here that are older than I am, and some listeners that definitely are in a
Younger than me, maybe.
different generation or two,
or different, grew up in different places that had access to different education budgets.
That is also very true. I did not go to school where I'm living, and I don't know what their tech situation is in schools. But yeah, so one thing I would like to mention off the bat is, when did having a cell phone in school, when was that just like the norm?
All right, so this was when I was in school for sure. iPhone? I don't know what year the iPhone came out. I know it was early. It was mid 2000s, something like that.
Okay.
But smartphones started to become a thing in late 2000s. But iPod touches were out around the same time.
Yeah.
Like just with games and iMessage texting. I remember people getting phones throughout elementary school, not smartphones. A couple people had smartphones. Middle school was when it took off. Absolutely. For me. And for me, middle school was 2009, 10, 11. Wait, is that true? Yeah. 2009 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12. That's it. And so you think, what was going on during those times? Well, let's see. I'm trying to paint a historical picture here. Late 2000s, I had some amazing music come out during my middle school years. I'm getting off topic immediately, 3 minutes into the episode. My middle school years started with that one album by Black Eyed Peas, which is awesome. The Boom Boom Pow, I Got a Feeling, I like that whole album. Fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
My middle school years ended with LMFAO, Party Rockin' and Sexy and I Know It. So I had an amazing time span of music. Dubstep was during that time. It was around 2011 and 12.
Oh, God.
Just to give everybody a picture to kind of remember where they were in life, the Avengers movies were coming out those years. Iron Man 1 was 2008, 2009. Avengers 1 was 2012. Borderlands 2 was 2012. So yeah, this was like the kind of technology coming out around then. I do not remember what year Facebook became a thing, but I know it started on campuses.
I was already in college.
A friend of mine, I think I mentioned her name on the podcast before, Colleen Ballesteros. She's on LinkedIn, if you want to get in touch with her. She and I were joking around once, and she had to correct me. She's like, "Will, I was in college when Facebook was a thing. I had to go to not my admissions office, but my program office and ask them for a university email so that I could join Facebook." I joined Facebook in middle school, and so middle school really was the explosion where you see everybody at the lunch table with their phones out.
Okay.
I think we were still getting in trouble for that at that time. I think we were. I think the hall monitors and stuff would still yell at us and to try to take our phones. But middle school was when that started for me. That was 2009, 2010, 2011. When Facebook had finally crept its way into the middle schools. And that was really the first big social media. So you get all the drama that came with it. But personal computers, that came a little bit later. Personal computers, I started seeing peers with those, their own laptops bringing to school, late high school. So for me, that was 2014, 15. And now everybody has a Chromebook in the school district that I attended. Even my sister, who graduated in 2021, she was issued a Chromebook. So just 6 years after I graduated, everybody had a Chromebook offered by the school.
That's
I don't
crazy.
I don't know how you even handle liability for that stuff. like for the physical product, if it gets damaged, like what
You
happens?
know they get broken. Like there's
They
no
get broken all the time. There's no way they're punishing the students because there's no way the parents are going to pay for that.
yeah,
They're just
no.
not going to.
They'll write it off
No clue how
somehow,
that works.
probably. I don't know. I'll have to ask my sister. Yeah, that's why I asked because my sister's an educator and like even in school she'll like text me. I'm like, how are you on your phone? Aren't you teaching? And she's like, they're all on their phones anyway, like actually on their phone or like texting or watching stuff. I'm like, this how? So to put it in perspective, let's see. When I was in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, my first cell phone was some weird Verizon or Sprint flip phone that had basically the equivalent of a calculator screen. Like that's how it looked. I don't even think my phone had games on it. Actually, it didn't even have Snake. That didn't come till later with
Didn't
the
have
Nokia's.
Snake. That's awful.
Yeah. Nope. I think it might have had Brick Breaker. Big fan of Brick Breaker. So I think that was the criteria of having the cell phone I had.
Asteroids was my game.
Yeah. Big fan of Asteroids too because I had an Atari as a child. Let's see. But then, like when I graduated high school, I went and saw The Life Aquatic in theaters. Do you even know what The Life Aquatic is? Oh man, it's a
Nope.
Wes Anderson movie.
I know
Do
the
you know
name.
Elliott Smith? Like I'm old enough to remember when Kurt Cobain died.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And Chris Farley, by the way, Chris Farley.
Oh,
But Elliott Smith's committed suicide in 2003, so my junior year. Like the
okay.
Sonic Youth was still a band.
Huh.
I think the Arcade Fire was still really popular, and he hadn't been ousted as like a sexual deviant or anything. Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 were just coming out,
Gotcha.
so I'm pretty old.
Yeah,
But
not
yeah,
really.
no, it just blows my mind. Like even on TV shows, when I do happen to watch TV and I see like kids walking down the hall all texting, I'm like, you would have had that shit ripped out of your hand and thrown in a drawer somewhere in an office until your
Oh yeah.
parents came to pick it up. Like they, if I were to have, if laptops existed when I went to school, and I would have, I mean, they did exist, but not for everybody. It was not a everybody has a personal computer. We had a family computer actually that plugged into the wall and made the stupid sounds. Yeah, but but it's not that I don't think it's bad. I think the use of them in school is bad. You should be able to have access to your phone. There's also a lot of things about the education system as far as like, from what I know, fellow or teachers that I know deal with. And it's like, man, the stuff that happens in schools now would have never even you think about it and you're probably going to get in trouble, sort of. That was just, we had a teacher that he ended up getting fired, rightfully, but you could hear him screaming from one side of our huge high school to the other, like at kids in the hall for being too loud as they walked by his classroom while it was in session.
Wow. Huh.
At one point, he held some kid up by his throat against the locker because he was being a dick. Yeah, so we had some hardcore teachers. But
Man.
yeah, I wondered because my first laptop I had my second year of college. Um, yeah, and it was a old school. I think that was my first Mac, and it was not as expensive as what they cost now, but it definitely couldn't do what they do now. It was the old white one that almost looked like the first iPod, like the big thick brick, the
Yeah.
super thick one, which apparently is in a museum somewhere as like ancient tech now or
That's
something.
cool.
It
It's
had
funny
the
you mentioned
spindle
that.
wheel.
I mentioned to my fiance recently, like we were mentioning just a bunch of different cities in the United States. That's my cat's automatic feeder, in case you can hear it through the mic. I mentioned like, oh, it'd be cool to go to Silicon Valley at one point. I don't know if there are tech museums over there because like our tech explosion as we know it now has really only been the last couple of decades. So I don't know if there is any like history to just view for fun. Like that would be really cool
The
if that
evolution
would be
of
exactly.
yeah. No, I think I'm not sure if it. I know I saw somebody somewhere that had a like video. It might have been on Instagram. They had a video of like, I'm so old. My first iPod is in a museum as like things of the past. Um, no, but when I grew up, my sister had one of those '90s neon light phones that when it rang, it would like
Huh.
they were clear. You should look it up. Type in like '90s neon light up phone. Again, you had to have
Here
it
we
plugged
go.
into the wall. It wasn't a cell phone. It wasn't wireless. It had a cable. Um,
Whoa.
yeah, right.
Whoa. That's cool. I would not
And
want
by the
that
way,
ringing in the middle of the night. But yeah.
I hate feeling that old, but for anybody listening that doesn't know, when we were growing up, up until we had cell phones, unless you had your own number, you had to have your own personal number and phone line put in the house. You could not get your own phone calls without somebody else in the house either picking it up for you or listening in on your conversation, maybe. Um, yeah,
I'm probably one of the last generations of
house phone,
of
the house
of
phone.
guys to have to make the first phone call to the girl's house, knowing
Oh
that it was
yeah,
the house phone,
oh
and
yeah,
knowing I might get anybody on the other
yeah.
line. Who the hell are you? Like, oh, I'm calling for your daughter.
And it's their dad. Yeah, it's that was
I
always
was probably
terrifying.
I did have to do that one time. I'm probably one of the last people to have to do that. This was like right before I would have gotten off the phone. This would have been
My
I
first
was 12 or 13.
my first serious girlfriend. This was in like I think it was my junior year, but I remember calling her house for the first time, and her dad is a Coast Guard captain. And I just remember like it was like 6 or 7
Hello.
at night, and before I even called her, I'm like, "There's a really good chance he's home. Maybe I just wait." And I do it at like 4 p.m. tomorrow, so that he might not be home. And sure enough, like the first time I called, it was at like 4 p.m., but he wasn't working that day, and he's the one that answered the phone. And I was like, "Hello,
My
is your
life is
daughter
over.
home? Who is this?" And I'm like, and I told him, and then he was just like, okay.
Those days were terrifying.
Yeah, like how nice would it have been to just be like, just send her a text, man. Like, oh yeah, good idea. I'll just send her. We didn't have text, and when we did have text, you chickened out before you finished hitting the number the third time to get the correct letter. Like, it was what a time to be alive. No,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I just wondered about the tech in schools because it's like they have the touch boards now. It's not even the
Smart
chalk.
boards, yeah.
Like I grew up in elementary school with chalkboards, like the old green board with the yellow chalk. Yeah, when you were in trouble, you got to go outside and get poisoned by chalk dust. That was your punishment. It may not seem like a bad punishment now because you're outside, but wait in 40 years when you get cancer because you have chalk dust in your lungs.
That's
And
wild.
back then, the lead pencils, the number two pencils, were really lead. Yeah, I got one I got the lead stuck in the palm of my hand when I was a kid. And I think I was there for like 11, 12 years. At one point, it slowly went away, but for the longest time, I just had like a green dot inside of my skin from the lead. Um, yeah, it's
Huh.
crazy. But yeah, no, now they got the touch boards. Those are super cool.
I like those. Those
It's
are good.
nuts. That's probably the
I had
coolest thing to
those in some
happen.
of my high school and middle school classes.
Do you ever wonder why schools don't put in some kind of electronics blocker? Like you'll have no signal, you can't get any Wi-Fi, and we're not giving you the password. All the devices you have a password, and it's locked. You can't
I
see it or
think
change it.
it's probably for emergency stuff.
Oh yeah, probably.
I remember having this conversation with someone in high school one day. I don't remember. I don't remember
I
what
mean,
it
it
was.
makes sense for safety, but at the same time, does the school itself no longer have phones?
Right, because I don't remember if the conversation was like, hey, all of our Wi-Fi stuff does shut down in the case of emergency. Either A, so that any infiltrators can't communicate with other people, or so that B, the students don't cause panic by calling 400 different people at the same time. I don't
That makes
remember.
sense. Yeah.
I or I don't remember if it was that, or maybe they block it during emergencies so that the the local bandwidth is clear for the actual school admin to do what they need to do in all emergency services. I don't remember, or maybe this was all a hoax. I got
Yeah,
that.
because I mean, there's some places of business I've been in where the second I pass through the door, I get no Wi-Fi, I get no service. My phone's like rendered basically useless outside of me trying to play a game on it, um, which is whatever. But I just wondered why schools don't do that. Like, if it became such a problem, I mean, teachers aren't allowed to even yell at kids anymore. Like, my sister got in trouble for trying to like I don't want to say discipline because where I come from and when I grew up, discipline was a totally different. Like I went to Catholic school the first 4 years of my life, so it was like capital punishment. Um,
Yeah.
but no, like now it's like if you reprimand a student in any way, you're gonna get a call from your principal or whoever the hell is in charge anymore. Because I don't even think your principal can do anything anymore. But at some point, somebody on the school board is going to review you because a parent complained now. Oh, you reprimanded my child because they did whatever. And it's like, you can't even try to get a student to be a good student anymore because it's up to the parents. And the student can just do whatever they want because they know they can just tell their parents.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I wondered about the tech thing. Like, when was it okay that cell phones were just like a thing? It was a big deal if you got your Game Boy into school to get it out at lunch. Like that was a huge deal.
Let's see. Which one was the most popular iPhone? I think it was the 6S, right? That was the first like thinner one. Yeah, because the 5 was the slightly boxier model, which I
Mm-hmm.
loved. That model was awesome. And the 6S, that was the first like sleek, thinner one.
Yeah.
That one I think was the best selling iPhone of all time, if I'm not mistaken. That one I think came out like right at the tail end of primary school for me. So like 11th, 12th grade. So like 11th, 12th grade, you see everybody on those in the cafeteria, the iPhone 6S. And oh man, that was at the same time we had all the early good games. So like Doodle Jump, Pocket
Oh
God,
yeah.
like all of those. I remember in study hall once I got my Doodle Jump record of like 16 minutes without dying, something like that. But
Doodle
yeah,
Jump.
phones all over the place by the end of high school for me, which was 2015.
It's hilarious that you said Doodle Jump because the other day, out of a brief moment for nostalgia or something, I thought about that and I went online and found Doodle Jump, and I was super happy. It was amazing.
Oh, I don't remember what year this was, but there was the time that Minecraft got ported over to the iPod touches.
Oh yeah,
That
yeah.
was big. Um, but yeah, nowadays, my old high school, everybody gets a Chromebook. My dad also teaches different school district in New York on Long Island. Everybody gets a Chromebook.
That's crazy. That is so crazy.
And so, like, all of their screens are facing them, not facing the teacher. The teacher does have access to one of those tools where they can see everybody's screens. And so they can see what the kids
Like
are
a
up to.
monitor, yeah.
Yeah. Um, oh, this is fun. My fiance has a student in school who is an absolute genius with like privacy
Tech.
stuff,
Yeah.
in tech and knowing how to get around different blockages. And so he has his, I forget if he has a Chromebook. I don't remember if their school does Chromebooks. They do something. But he is able to get highly questionable content onto their projectors and smart boards and everything like that, where they have
Oh
to like,
no.
I think he was able to do this in sixth grade maybe.
That's
And
crazy.
like, it sounds like a nightmare for the school, but it's cool for somebody who can look at that kid and be like, if I can steer him in the right direction, he's going to make
He's
a
gonna
lot of
go
money.
somewhere. Yeah.
Like he's going
Yeah.
to be,
He needs he needs he needs somebody to not he needs to know what he's doing from the school standpoint is disruptive, but he needs
yeah,
to find the right person to tell him and mentor him in the right direction because he'll
right,
go somewhere. Like that's
yeah.
yeah.
And my fiance also told me that I think the principal or the superintendent or someone in charge like brought in their tech guy and said like, "Hey, we're having problems with this kid." And he's like, "Oh, he shouldn't be able to get around this." And I think the kid was in the office and just demonstrated right away. And their tech guy was just like,
Here's how you do it. Yeah.
"Oh no, I guess he can get around it. I have to get better at my job."
When was it? That was the PS3 or PS4. The first one you started needing an account.
Three had the big data leak or the
Yeah,
account leak.
you know the kid that did that at that time was like 15 years old,
Wow.
and they took him to court because he was a minor, couldn't do anything major about it. So they basically tried to sue and then litigate, and in the end, their settlement with him was, you don't have to pay the money. We're not going to make you broke. You have a future somewhere, and it's with us doing security. Like, you're going to write security for us. So he got
Okay.
lucky. Like, that's
Okay.
crazy. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Um,
nuts.
so yeah, I remember my dad really didn't want us to have smartphones for as long as possible. I don't think it was exactly the social media stuff. I think it was more just there were five of us in the family, and just who's paying for five different smartphones and five
Yeah,
different
exactly.
phone lines. I think that's what it was about. And so I only got a smartphone right at the tail end of my senior year of high school. Before that, I was rocking the iPod Touch plus flip phone, like a
Oh
track
yeah.
phone, basically with prepaid minutes. That combo for all of middle school and high school.
We
My brother
uh
had the same thing.
we were in the pager generation in middle school. Everybody had a pager. It's
Was that
so
was
crazy.
that the major technology in Zoe 101 on Nickelodeon?
Yep.
They had pagers.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's
And then it
why.
slowly
Because
moved
that
over to
was the
phones
thing.
and Drake and
Yeah.
Josh, phones and iCarly. Yeah.
Yeah, iCarly, what did they have? It was a pear phone or something, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
Yeah. Victorious had the same thing, that pair phone.
That's crazy. But that's so weird. It's wild how quickly like it took over. Like from when I got my cell phone in 2001 to 2004 would be when I in the range where I got my first cell phone. From then till now, that is such a rapid like that's a huge amount of time. I mean, I know it's what would that be? That's 20 years. 20 years? Yeah. Like 20 years since I graduated. So, yeah, in 20 years it's taken over, which is crazy because when I was in high school, it doesn't seem that long now, but 20 years is 20 years. And yeah, when you think about it, it's like, man, my dad's first cell phone, it was one of those big gray Motorola's with the rubber antenna on it. And then in college, I had one of the Nextels with the two-way beep on it. They were like a
Gotcha.
walkie-talkie, and but they were the cell phone. But you had a button where if you had somebody else's two-way code, you could basically page them and beep them and walkie-talkie them on your cell phone without having to make
That's
a
cool.
phone call. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Data now. Data is everything. And when I had my first cell phone, the rule was like you cannot text anybody because texting is what costs money. Phone
Yeah.
calls are free on the weekends, or it was like, yeah, from Friday to Sunday, midnight, your calls were free. But then during the week, it was you had so many with your contract. It was like you had so many minutes or whatever. Your minutes never ran out. You would just get charged a little bit extra. But if you did have a prepaid phone, your minutes were out when they were out. It was just
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
But texting was the killer. That was always the thing. Like I just remember when I got my phone, my dad was like, the first time I texted a bunch of people because I was super excited I could text, and then immediately upon him getting the next bill, he was just like, "What the hell?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. It's just way easier to text."
Uh,
Uh,
um, one thing I wonder when the first Apple AirPod was, because I remember people with like actual headphones and earbuds with wires all the time throughout middle school and high school.
oh yeah,
Um, Apple AirPods first generation. of course, there were other wireless earbuds.
That's a few
But like,
years now, though, isn't it?
yeah, first generation came out in 2016. All right, so that was my. It was August 2016, so that was right at the start of my sophomore year of college. Okay, so people did not have that stuff in my high school years, but I like remember them having it in my high school years, which was weird. Probably because we had the awful hard plastic wired Apple headphones before then.
Oh yeah,
You
those
saw
are
those
terrible.
everywhere. Yeah, so much sound leak and just yeah. So let's see. The phones were everywhere in the cafeterias, um, everywhere around school. Period. I remember playing. Oh my god! I remember playing an emulator of Pokemon Emerald on my phone, walking between classes.
That's crazy. There's no way. That's nuts.
Yeah, and then
Go,
plug in my headphones, listen to one song as I walk from class to class. Very common.
you should go into
Um,
Google real quick, and type in the Sony Discman and Sony Walkman. I owned these in succession. So the Walkman was first, and that was like my first mobile music haver.
yeah, I remember these. My dad had a copy of each of these in the house, or at least something similar.
And the Discman was a little bit bigger than a CD.
Yeah. Oh, we had the Discman in the house, not the Walkman.
That was crazy. That was like our portable thing. That's why I freaked out. Like, I think I was one of the first people to own an iPod because as soon as it came out, like I've always been a music person, and they were like, "You can fit." I don't even remember what the memory was on
A
my
couple
first
thousands.
iPod. It didn't hold a lot of music because now my phone has like my phone alone downloaded music. I think has over 15,000 songs on it. Hold on, let me look. I can
I found
look at the list.
the classic first generation iPod capacity you could get at 5 gigabytes or 10 gigabytes, but still, that's quite a
Yes.
lot of songs.
Oh yeah. It still didn't. The other problem was at that time.
You can have all of Freebird by Lynyrd Skynyrd. That's it.
Yeah. And by that time, when you wanted to put music on your iPod in iTunes, you had to take each individual CD and put it
Burn it
into your
onto the computer.
computer.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I did that with the
And then
library.
some and then some of the CDs, the music library wasn't automated via the internet, so you had to input each track by names. It was it was fun if you were like me and it was like, oh, I haven't looked at the CD's album art in a while, so I'm going to look through it and do all the names and everything in my library. But that was insane. I freaked out, and now it's crazy how. I wish it would just tell me how many songs are in my library.
Are you on Spotify or something else?
Just my Apple Music,
Gotcha.
because it takes all the music that I have. I've had this library on from my first Mac. I've transferred it over to each
Nice.
computer.
I'm sitting at 930 on my Spotify liked songs playlist. Almost there to 1,000.
Yeah, this is no joke. Like I have old school Bone Thugs and Harmony on here. Oh man. Hold on. I gotta look. If anybody knows and I don't figure it out before we run out of time, hit me up with an email and tell me how I can see my entire song library because it's just not letting me do it. I
Top
thought it was
comment
like,
is the iPad version of the app tells you how many songs all the way at the bottom in the song selection, but it's weird that the iPhone Music app doesn't tell you.
yeah, that's what I mean. It won't tell me at all.
I would love to be able to kind of take the image I have of tech in high school, change it into like a Renaissance painting, so I could really show everybody the way I remember it. And I wish I could get this for like every interval of 5 years to try to see how other people remember tech in their high schools. I think that would be really cool. Like you see images from the 90s or videos from the 90s. It's just weird haircuts and brightly colored t-shirts and backpacks. But then if you look at 2015, it's just cell phone. It's just iPhone 6S everywhere. Well, in that case, thank you everybody for listening. Good luck to Zach's computer.
It's about to die. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk to you in the next episode.
All right. Bye.
See you.